Peace and blessings, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to a special edition of your On Point Weather Report live here on New Freedom Network exclusive. Peace and blessings, everyone. Hope everyone is having a great Monday evening. Hope everyone had a great Monday in general. If you're here, tuned in, we ask that you let us know, send regards of peace, as we always begin with peace, and extend the universal greetings of peace and blessings to everyone. Assalamu alaikum. It's peace and blessings to you all on this Monday evening. And if you are watching from wherever you are, please feel free to let us know where you're tuned in from. Put that in the chat. Let us know you're here. Let us know you hear us live and direct here this evening. We come live today to discuss an update, give some updates in reference to what we're seeing with the second major hurricane to make landfall or projected to make landfall here in the United States during this hurricane season. That's Hurricane Milton, which is sitting in the Gulf of Mexico right now, churning in the Gulf of Mexico, heading straight to the western shore of the state of Florida. And will make impacts will start being felt, and the potential landfall is projected to be on Wednesday of this week. And we are only about a week or so away from the last hurricane that affected the state of Florida, but that was the Panhandle, and gave a surprising catastrophic damage to the Appalachia of the Carolinas, especially around Asheville, North Carolina, etc., with devastating and historic flooding. What we're seeing is something that's very unprecedented this time, in terms of how quickly these two systems have really picked up and really intensified very, very quickly. Rapid intensification in the Gulf of Mexico, which is an environment right now that's very ripe for development of tropical systems. And we're going to show you some maps and some graphs and different things like that, different things of that nature, just to put things in perspective. But tonight is very serious matter, because this is a major hurricane heading to impact an already impacted state of Florida in less than about a week and a half between the last system. And this time, this will be a different portion of the state that was impacted, but wasn't impacted as much as the Panhandle was in Appalachia. I want to say, too, that this storm system is nothing to play with. This hurricane is serious. This is a very serious matter. It requires very serious attention to the details of it being a major hurricane, point blank, period. Whatever is a Category 5 at landfall or Category 3 at landfall, that's a major hurricane status. I repeat, whatever strength the storm system is upon landfall is irrelevant. As right now, the storm is projected to still be a major hurricane of Category 3 or Category 4 strength. So if you're watching right now, I'm going to bring you up to speed to what watches and warnings and advisories are up for Hurricane Milton as it makes its approach to the state of Florida. This is the worst possible scenario, the worst case scenario that could happen for the city of Tampa. I want to be very clear, as some of the cities in the United States already sit in a very below sea level. It's a very peculiar situation, because the cities already are below sea level as is. With a major hurricane or a hurricane of any strength, but in particular a major hurricane with this kind of strength, the major concern is the water. The major concern is the water, storm surge, the push of the water, the pushing of the water, that wind, that direction that's pushing the water inland, which is the worst case scenario if, in fact, Milton makes that direct landfall in Tampa Bay, in the Tampa Bay area. It's the worst possible scenario that could happen in this kind of situation. The worst. The worst, ladies and gentlemen. And I just want to hope that everyone's understanding what I'm saying tonight. If you have family in Tampa, in this west around Tampa and south of Tampa, central Florida, period, is in the direction of the storm system, Hurricane Milton, heading for a beeline for Florida on Wednesday. Can't stress it enough. All right. With that being said, let's get into some guidance, because what happens now is not so much the jargon that comes with the study. The jargon, it's a lot of information is out there right now. It's a lot of information, somewhat information overload, because we have social media at our fingertips, and information is just everywhere at our fingertips, right? So the role that's being played now is to dissect that information and give you the best information that's out, and the more being more informative about the situation. It's the best way that we can put, the best construct that we can put on this situation at this point of time, because we have so much information out. So we're just going to dissect the information and interpret the information and be able to give you that information in a digestible way so that it makes sense, right? So that it makes sense. What is the most important thing is to understand that these systems, or type of systems, they tend to wobble and they tend to make last minute changes in direction and shifts. That's a factor. A matter of 50 miles north or 50 miles south is a difference maker in terms of you are not being, you 50 miles north or 50 miles south could make the difference of you being in the right front quadrant of the storm. Where that eye sets up and the right side of the eye wall is the right front quadrant. You do not want to be in the right front quadrant. The right front quadrant is the most intense portion of the hurricane. The most intense portion of the hurricane is that right front quadrant. And that's the worst possible scenario that can happen for the city of Tampa. Direct hit with that right front quadrant. It's the worst case scenario, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go over some information now for you all, just to point some more points of reference, just to paint what we're looking at is a very devastating situation that could be heading to the state of Florida at this point of time. Catastrophic in nature. This is Category 5 hurricane as of 8:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Latest weather report coming out of the National Hurricane Center is what we're going to go over right now, as of 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're going to share screen and bring that up so you all can see it and follow along with me tonight as we make this presentation. And again, feel free to ask any questions related to the content that we share tonight, as we prefer you to ask questions as well. Okay. So I'm going to go small here, and hopefully you all get to see what I'm seeing tonight. So this is the map. This is the website, the National Weather Service, but we're going to go specifically to the information on Hurricane Milton, if we can. Hold on one second. Let me stop share and do it this way. This way will be better for me and for you all. Okay. Alrighty. Hopefully you can see the map change to hurricanes. Is it changing? No. So we're sharing the wrong screen. Pardon me tonight. Going to share the correct tab. There we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you can see the screen tonight. We're going to scroll down. Here is the National Hurricane Center. My cursor is over where Hurricane Milton is in the Gulf of Mexico right now. And we're going to click into it to read the latest guidance to you. So key messaging as of 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's 5 o'clock Eastern Time. So right now we have damaging hurricane force winds and life-threatening storm surge with destructive waves that are being experienced on the northern coast Yucatan Peninsula. That's in Mexico. Milton is expected to grow in size and remain an extremely dangerous hurricane when it approaches the west coast of Florida on Wednesday. A large area of destructive storm surge will occur along parts of the west coast of Florida on Wednesday. This is an extremely life-threatening situation, and residents in those areas should follow advice given by local officials and evacuate immediately if told to do so. Potentially devastating hurricane force winds are expected along portions of the west coast of Florida, where a hurricane warning is now in effect. Milton is forecast to remain a hurricane as it crosses the Florida Peninsula, and life-threatening hurricane force winds, especially in gusts, are expected to spread inland across a portion of the entire Florida Peninsula. Preparations to protect life and property in the warning area should come to a completion by Tuesday or tomorrow night, since tropical storm conditions are expected to begin within this area early Wednesday. Areas of heavy rainfall will impact portions of Florida today, well ahead of Milton, with heavy rainfall more directly related to the system expected later on Tuesday through Wednesday night. This rainfall will bring the risk of considerable flash urban area flooding, along with the potential for moderate to major river flooding. Okay, let's go into the storm surge areas here. All right, where we have this darker pink color, this is storm surge warnings stretching from way north of Tampa into Tampa Bay proper, all the way down to the southern western portion of the state of Florida. It's a large area of the state. And on the other side of the state, from Orlando to Jacksonville, on the eastern portion of the state, storm surge watches. Now, how much water can we expect being pushed in what they call inundation? How much inundation from the water are we expected to come inland? Let's see if we can zoom in here. I don't think we can on this one. No, we can. Aha, here we go. Okay. We're going to zoom in to Tampa Bay area. This is the Tampa Bay area, St. Petersburg, Clearwater. This is Tampa. This is the Bay Area. And we're talking about these dark red colors. We're talking easily 9 feet or more of water all the way down to Sarasota. 9 feet of water. Better image right here. Spells it out. 9 feet plus. We're talking purple. If you're from Tampa Bay area to Charlotte Harbor, Inglewood, talking about 10 to 15 feet of water. If you're just north of that, north of Tampa Bay, between Yankeetown and the Anclody River, 5 to 10 feet, and much smaller inundation, storm surge north of that. 6 to 10 feet from Inglewood to Bonita Beach, right? And then Charlotte, Bonita Beach to Chokoloskee, Florida, 4 to 7 feet, and much less down to Flamingo and the Florida Keys as well. And then where we have storm surge watches on the eastern portion of the state, so from Savannah all the way down to St. Sebastian Inlet, 2 to 4 feet on average of storm surge. You may get 3 to 5 in and around the St. Johns River area, but on average, 2 to 4 feet here. The most catastrophic of it all, damaging and life-threatening, is without a doubt Tampa Bay area, all the way down to Inglewood, Florida, with 10 to 15 feet of storm surge heading this way to the smack region here. So this is what we're exactly looking at, seeing on Wednesday from Milton. So that's inundation, flash flooding, extreme. We're talking moderate risk or even high level risk, above 40% easily. Tampa Bay, stretching from Tampa Bay all the way to Orlando, all the way up to Jacksonville. Regardless if you're near storm surge area or not, those areas that need to be concerned with storm surge are the areas closer to the water, closer to the Gulf of Mexico. On this side, western portion of the state, you have to worry about the Atlantic Ocean. Regardless, the nature of the storm is huge, as we will see in a momentarily. That's going to cover basically almost the whole state, but basically almost the whole state. And with that, bringing the impacts of heavy rain further inland. So that's why the flooding risk all the way goes up to Jacksonville, from Jacksonville to Orlando to Tampa Bay. Even some flooding risks in the southern portion of the state as well, just south of Orlando as well. We want to go now to the warnings and cone area. At this point, this is the track of Milton. M stands for major hurricane status. Marks the spot. X marks the spot where Hurricane Milton is located. This is the track of Milton. Concern is that where that M sits is where Tampa Bay area is. That's the direct landfall we were speaking of. That's the impacts we will. That's hence the area of impact that we talked about being felt from just north of Tampa Bay area and just south of the Tampa Bay area. In terms of storm surge, wind, rain. Right now, again, as the latest advisory, we have 7 p.m. Central, which is 8 p.m. Eastern. We have a storm with maximum sustained winds of 180 miles per hour, moving east at 10 miles per hour. This is one of the strongest systems ever recorded on record, if not in the top, I believe the top five in terms of records. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're in a situation that yet again, in fact, the millibars was somewhere around 899. That's 3 hours ago, according to Hurricane Hunter's vantage point when they went in to the storm system. around 899. That's what I'm seeing here. I'm also seeing the language. The language is crucial. Yes, 889. Mm-hmm. And it might even be a little bit stronger than that because the hurricane hunters didn't fly directly into. They might have missed the tiny pinhole eye that has formed on the storm system. It's very tiny right now. So the recon data coming back shows 899 or 898, excuse me, 898 millibars. But in fact, the barometric pressure might be a tad bit lower than that. This signaling in strength and this intensification. The look of it, because we want to show you how big the storm system is. Okay, we have a question tonight from Roy. Okay, he asks, what's the speed of winds when it hits? Okay, so we talked about earlier, just a few minutes ago, that right now, Milton is a Category 5 hurricane, major hurricane status. Winds clocked up 180 miles per hour, just about. Okay, and it's projected to weaken just a tad bit to a Category 3 or perhaps 4 hurricane. So winds up from winds from minimum 120 miles per hour to around 150 miles per hour, max somewhere around that range. We don't know necessarily how much it will weaken in terms of when it gets close to land. What I want to stress here is not so much the categorical strength of the hurricane. At this point, not to say it doesn't matter, but all the guidance that shows it's going to be a major hurricane regardless. 3, 4, 5. I mean, yes, in terms of wind damage, of course, it's still going to be damaged regardless in terms of wind from wind. But the major concern is the storm surge, especially for those living towards Tampa, Sarasota, just north of Tampa, and just south of Tampa, Sarasota, and those towns living closer to the water. 10 to 15 feet, if not more, in terms of storm surge. That is catastrophic, life-threatening. That would be the most concern. Not saying the wind is not. We need to want to focus on that water and how much water is getting pushed into the city of Tampa through the bay. That's really the worst possible scenario of this whole situation, is a direct landfall of a major hurricane into the city of Tampa. I remember watching shows that talked about direct hits to New York, to Tampa, and some other cities. Obviously, we saw what happened with New Orleans with Hurricane Katrina. With that storm surge and the levees not being able to sustain that and breaking on us. This is might be a quite similar situation, even though every hurricane is not the same in terms of its impacts. In an area, it may vary. Well, what will not vary is the fact that we will see storm surge that's up to 15, if not 20 feet of water. The state is already reeling from what happened before a week or so, not too far away from the last hurricane that hit the Panhandle. So we're dealing with back-to-back hurricanes, but covering two different portions of the state of Florida. Brother Thomas Bell says it got down to 897 a little while ago. That's right. That is right. That is correct. It did get down to 897 a little while ago with the data that came in. But man, it's this thing really started with a tropical wave. It was a wave, then quickly became a tropical storm, and then just rapidly intensified into a major hurricane. I mean, you're talking about a matter of a few days, if that best, for this to get to where it is right today, right now. So please, if you have loved ones, thank you for the question, Roy. Thank you for the question, Thomas. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you all for that. Definitely appreciate it. But if you have friends and relatives that are living in these areas in the state of Florida right now, please call them, check up on them. If they haven't evacuated where there are mandatory evacuations, they should do so immediately. Immediately. Do not waste time. The window of preparation is coming to an end. By tomorrow, the window of preparation will be over. There will be no more preparation time. If you're living in Tampa Bay area, Sarasota, just north of Tampa Bay and just south of Tampa Bay area, please take this storm system very serious. This is not a joke. This is no hype. This is what's happening. So the best preparation at this point of time is to think about if you can move yourself out of the area where there are storm surge warnings. If you could move further inland, that would be best. Probably best for you if you can move further inland away from the water. Because the inland, we're not worried so much about storm surge as you move away from the Tampa Bay, Sarasota. However, we are worried about flooding and urban flooding in that nature in places like Orlando, and places in between Orlando, and just way north of Orlando, like we said earlier, up into Jacksonville. Again, this storm system is huge, so the impacts will cover a large portion of the state. So if you're not getting storm surge on the coast, you're getting heavy rain also from the coast all the way inland. Power outages are going to be likely. Can't stress that enough. If you are staying and you don't have to evacuate and you plan to stay, if you're living even inner away from the coast, if you have to prepare yourself and your preparations have to come to an end by tomorrow. The window of opportunity of preparation is coming to an end. So if you're boarding up your windows, if you're going to get your medication or someone else's medication, get your cash out. Have your cash on hand. Have your flashlights loaded with fresh batteries. Have your generator ready if you have one. Food, non-perishable items, things that won't go bad quickly. Have those prepared. Water, etc. Those kind of items. First aid kits, Band-Aids, alcohol wipes, things of that nature. Have those things prepared, because more than likely they're going to be dealing with recovery efforts that we're talking about that could last potentially weeks, if not months. Especially those coastal areas are going to get clobbered. Worst possible scenario that could play out in the books is to see a direct hit in this area of this portion of the state. For sure, again, the areas will be impacted heavily, and that's why we're saying power could be out for a long time, potentially weeks. There will have to be a response that would warrant, this storm will warrant a response from the government on the federal level to bring resources to the state. The state has already been hammered already from the past hurricane that hit the Panhandle. But the governor of the state would have to call in support from the federal level. That's how dangerous this storm system will be, and its impacts are going to be dangerous and catastrophic. So with that being said, you have to give yourself timing to think about, hey, my power could be out longer because the power crews are going to have their hands full. The power crews will more than likely have their hands full and trying to restore power to as many customers as they can. They may not get to everyone fast enough. Again, resources will have to come from out of state to help. We've seen some of that mobilized with the past hurricane system, with some New York crews coming down to Florida to help, some other states sending down. That could very well happen again. That could very well happen again in the central portion of the state of Florida, especially along the coast. We're talking about catastrophic storm surge that will wipe out structures, completely wipe out structures. We're talking flattening places, heavy beach erosion. I mean, the total landscape way that you see this area right now is not the way that you're going to see it after the storm system passes. It's just not. It's going to look totally different. So this is how serious this is. Let's look at how what it looks like on radar or satellite imagery of the storm system right now. Obviously, we may not get it because of the nighttime, but let's see if we can get some of it here. Here we go. So this is Milton. Sun has set, but we have some pictures from the night view of Earth from the satellites up in space. This is what Milton looks like, and you see that little pin, little dot. That's the eye, very small, and that's why the hurricane hunters probably missed it when they went in to do the initial the recent reading that we just read to you in terms of its strength, in terms of barometric pressure. It might have been off by a little bit. Oh, here we go. Okay, this is a little active one. It's moving, but you get the picture that this storm system is very huge, and it's getting bigger, and it's just getting started to really strengthen. And we're probably going to see it go through multiple. This is a still image here. That was a loop, but this is still image here that we're showing now. Still image here. Zoom in here. I mean, it's almost perfect symmetry. Again, it's getting bigger in size. You already see how wide it is. And like I said, it's more than likely going to take different, not shapes, but different looks, if you would, as it moves closer to the panhandle. To Central Florida. And that happens as these systems tend to go through their phases of development, the ups and downs. They adjust to the environment that they're in, so they tend to take different looks. But man, this thing looks, it's very much shaped well, and looks very healthy. I mean, atmospherically, mineralogically, the storm system looks really healthy. It may like I said, it's predicted to weaken a little bit. May come across some shear, some things that could affect its look and its strength. Not just its look, but it's also its strength, which is good, but not good enough to get it to whereas it'd be way weaker than a category 3 or 4. Another question. All right. So from Roy, he says, when is it subject to hit Florida? We're talking Wednesday. And I will show. Where's that? Warnings in the cone map again. No, that's not it. That's an interactive map, the static one. Okay, so we're talking Wednesday by 1 o'clock or Wednesday afternoon, right around lunchtime or a little bit after lunch. M stands for major hurricane status. Again, anything above a 3 to 4, to 5 is a major hurricane status. And we're talking about landfall in Florida by 1 p.m. or so on Wednesday afternoon. Tuesday, it's tomorrow, it'll be roughly here in the Gulf of Mexico. So clearing, steadily moving away from the Yucatan Peninsula. And then by Tuesday going to Wednesday morning on overnight hours, just right here, just northwest of the of Cuba, just northwest of Cuba. So it clears again, no action with land, it's just going to sit out in open water. That's the problem with this. There's no interaction with land before it gets to Florida. So weekend, because we'll have some upper level winds that'll kind of chop away at some of the higher cloud tops of the forming thunderstorms. But not enough shear, not enough time for it to really weaken it completely to even a Category 1 status. So that's why we're still concerned about it being a major hurricane, because regardless of that little change that's predicted to happen, it's going to take landfall. It's going to have detrimental impacts Wednesday afternoon at 1 p.m. Right now is a Category 5 hurricane right now, which is crazy. I mean, completely unprecedented what we're seeing right now. Like I said, not interacting with just north of the Yucatan. So yes, the Yucatan right now is feeling it, the northern Yucatan Peninsula, but it won't be a Category 5 when it hits Florida. It will be a Category 3 or a Category 4 hurricane. But again, can't stress it enough that the strength is not the biggest jargon or thing to know at this particular time. What's important to understand is its impacts to the region. Regardless of its status at this point of time, it's not a big conversation point. A lot of people, you're going to hear a lot of jargon, a lot of language. People are going to throw a lot of stuff at you. The most important thing I need people to realize tonight is that storm surge is going to be the main biggest threat. The most deadliest element, the one that takes the most lives in this weather phenomenon, is water, flooding. That's the number one cause of death. Not tornadoes, not blizzards, not hurricanes, but hurricanes directly, but indirectly due to the fact of how much water is being pushed in to the city or the town or the village, whatever have you. In this case, that's why it's important to leave. Evacuate if you can. Move further inland so you'll be at least away from that major threat. That's the bottom line. Evacuations is imperative. Very imperative at this point in time. Can't stress it enough. Any other questions, comments? We'll take them. We will definitely take them. But that's the messaging for tonight. I mean, it's a very not so good situation to be in. It's a very deadly situation. I gotta call my aunt. She's going to be in the line of fire from this storm system. Actually, she lives in the Tampa area, so I have to check on her tonight to see where she's at with this whole ordeal. So if you have families, please call them, check up on them, see what their status is. How are they doing? Are they planning to evacuate? If their evacuations have been mandatory, you must leave. You have to leave. I mean, the risk is that if you stay, obviously, you have, mark yourself. Okay, so Orlando, not the impacts in terms of Orlando and inland areas are storm surge is not the threat there because we're not dealing with water coming from bodies of water like the Gulf of Mexico, Atlantic Ocean. We're going to be talking more so flooding being the main threat in places like Orlando. That's the main concern for Orlando: flooding and wind damage. Flooding and wind damage, because as this thing makes landfall, it's going to interact with land, but it will weaken as it makes landfall steadily. It will definitely weaken as it moves off of Florida. But when it hits, it's going to hit hard, especially coastal areas. But even as we get into the inland areas, hurricane force winds of 75 plus and more are going to be felt even further inland. That's the other portion. Flooding, urban flooding, also power outages. Power outages is going to be likely from the coast areas all the way inland. That's going to be across the board, no matter where you're living. The risk of power outages is going to be like moderate to likely in those areas. So that's why even inland cities like Orlando, like even up to Jacksonville, we talked about going to see some impacts there that may not be storm surge related, but they will be flooding related. There might be wind related as well. So those other impacts from the storm system, it's going to be felt there. It's going to be different depending on what town and what city you're in. So remember, the coast area is going to get clobbered because they're in the direct line of that right front quadrant. Where that eye makes landfall, just look at where the right front quadrant is, where the eye is, and to the right side of that is that right front quadrant, which is the most strongest part of the hurricane itself. That's where you see the most strongest winds, and that's where you're going to see that big push of water that we were referring to. It's all going to happen in the right front quadrant. Smack dab right in between Tampa and Sarasota. Sarasota to the south, but right now somewhere in the Tampa Bay area. But impacts south towards Sarasota are going to be felt too, and just impacts just north of the Tampa Bay area is going to be felt too along the coast. So that right front quadrant is going to be the beast. And as the storms moves inland, they'll also you monitor that right front quadrant's progress, because even though you're not concerned about storm surge, you'll be concerned about flooding and wind, where those strong winds will be centered. But the storm being so spread out in nature, it's going to cover a large portion of Central Florida. So the impacts will be felt wind-wise even in Central Florida. The other component here, the other component is that I wanted to say that it's going to cause, where is it? Okay. Sample 4. All right. So if you're living, they only covered this. There's another graph here, but we're not going to show that. But if you're living in Fort Myers, but Sarasota, Tampa, and just north, that's the bullseye in the potential for winds greater than 110 miles per hour. If you're living in Fort Myers, Arcadia, Sebring, up to around Crystal River, Brooksville, you think potential winds for 74 to 110 miles per hour. That's further inland. I mean, Arcadia, Lakeland, and Fort Myers is a tad bit further inland. So take that red, because take that red is potential for category 1 winds to almost 2 to be felt further inland. So we're just going to move that as the storm moves in to the state. We're just going to move that line further inland. That's all. That's all. So as just the immediate area that's going to get the brunt of the impact of wind and storm surge, Tampa and Sarasota, and then anything outside of that moving eastward is going to get category 1, category 2, maybe 3 strength, but definitely category 2, definitely category 1 wind, and 2 as well. So that's where we lie right tonight. Again, I pray that everyone stays safe in this situation. I pray that people have places to evacuate to, because some people may not have places to evacuate to, and that's the reality too. That unfortunate reality that a lot of people face. So you definitely keep those in prayer in the state of Florida, as it's going to reel from another major hurricane hitting the state of Florida. And after this, hopefully things quiet down to catch a break for Florida to catch a break. I will have to check the records when the last time Florida has seen this much activity. In other few past hurricane seasons, it hasn't been this active. Not like this. So kind of been dodging the bullet the last few seasons, Florida. So I don't want to say you're catching up for that, but it's just these tracks have been right like dead center to the state of Florida, like bullseye. This one and the past storms hurricane, like direct bullseyes to the state. So please, 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 this is why we talk about preparation even before hurricane season comes, to know where you are, what evacuation or flood zone you're in, having your kits ready, having your generator if you can get one ready, having those things ready for the season to come, because right now we're in the peak of the hurricane season. After this point of period of time, as we get into November and December, things start to peel off. We should see a decline. Getting to later in the fall, going to beginning of the winter, into the season is over. So right now, we pray that this is the last of these impactful major hurricanes this season, that we will see no more. But we will monitor the activity in the Gulf of Mexico, because we get these sneaky ones that develop really fast and really quickly and don't give you a lot of time, because the proximity to land is just too close. Like when a storm system coming off the coast of the Horn of West Africa or in the Caribbean gives you time to prepare. Especially the ones that come off the Horn of West Africa give you a lot of time to prepare, because they have to make that track from the coast of West Africa all the way into the Caribbean, and then maybe getting into the Yucatan around Mexico, the Bay of Campeche, getting into the Gulf of Mexico. Maybe they'll get in there, but that's a long shot. I mean, it's a long trek, rather. It's a long journey to get from there to here. So these ones that develop in the Gulf have to be monitored very closely, because you don't really have a lot of time to prepare. This case on the last system, and in this case, not much time to prepare and not much time to do anything, but you have to rush your preparations, put them in order, and just prepare yourselves to leave if you can leave. So by Tuesday afternoon, preparations is done. Tuesday evening, we'll start feeling some impacts, tropical storm force winds, coastal areas. You start to see some rain. But then Wednesday morning into Wednesday afternoon, things quickly deteriorate as we get closer to landfall, and just going to see a totally different scene come Wednesday of how this thing's going to look like once this thing makes landfall. I mean, crazy day, crazy time, busy time monitoring. We'll stay abreast of everything, try to keep everyone else abreast to what's going on with Milton, but that's what we have tonight. If anyone has any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat box or the comment section rather, and we'll get back to you with an answer. But again, please be careful. Please check on your family and those around you in the state of Florida, and check up on them. Let them know that you care about them and their well-being. And if they need help, we try and definitely should say to get them some help that they need during this time. So again, thank you all for always for tuning in, supporting, like, share, comment. We appreciate all the support, and we will see you again probably tomorrow. Again, we'll come on live to discuss where we are with Milton. We'll give us another shot to see if anything changes majorly, if in a good or bad way, or indifferent, and let you know what that looks like by this time tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. All right, everyone, wherever you are, we're thankful for you. Stay safe, be blessed. Peace and blessings.